fast, where truth moves faster than a Holstein calf. No waiting on some pretty page. We're charting new ground in the digital age. From genomic codes to roll-wide facts, we cut through the noise, no holding back. Not your daddy's dairy news tonight. We're sparking debates with every insight. The ring's not where the real fight's at. It's in the data, in the channel chat. From pasture to processor to your morning cup, we're raising the stakes. Try and get ahead of herd. Yeah! Where the future's more than just a word. Ahead of herd. Come on! The bullvine's calling, let your voice be heard.
Welcome back to the Bullvine Podcast, where we cut through dairy industry noise to get you the insights that actually matter for your operation.
And today we're diving deep into a feature piece that's got some serious buzz. This deep dive focuses on the December 2025 Journal of Dairy Science.
Yeah.
And the stack of findings here, I mean, from calves all the way to culls, it has layers that'll make every farmer rethink their approach.
It really will. We're talking about these long-held standard protocols.
The ones we just inherited.
Exactly. Yeah. The ones we just do because that's how it's done. And now it's being proven that they are, well, significantly underperforming.
And the central theme, when you look at all this research together, it's just brutal honesty.
It is. It's saying that if you're sticking to the way you've done things for the last decade, just because, that's the standard.
You're leaving money on the table.
Quantifiable money. Or, and I think this is even worse, you might be actively inflicting some minor harm on your animals without even realizing it. We're talking about everything. The maximum volume of colostrum we push into a calf, the subtle signs of lameness we are missing for weeks.
And even the beef sire choices we're making right now.
Yeah. And look, this is mandatory listening because the stakes here, they aren't academic. This is dollars and cents.
Quantified by the best research in the world. We're quoting specific, massive financial gaps. Just think about lameness for a second.
Okay.
That 23-day delay in detection. The difference between a modern AI system catching it and, you or your standard activity caller finally flagging it.
That's a huge
It's a chasm. It's the difference between a $50 early intervention when you can still fix the root cause and a $400 plus treatment after the cow's got a severe structurally damaging lesion.
That completely changes the whole conversation around investing in monitoring tech, doesn't it?
It has to.
I mean, if you buy a system and it only makes you, say, 10% faster at spotting a lame cow, the ROI is in still weeks.
Right.
But the technology buys you 23 days of preventative time before there's even a lesion.
Yeah.
The investment justifies itself almost immediately. You prevent just a handful of those chronic cases and it's paid for. It's a totally different business decision for you to make.
Absolutely. And it's not just the big numbers on the cow side. On the calf side, we've been operating under this assumption that, more is better with colostrum volume.
We all have.
And it was driven by a necessary push to guarantee minimum IgG absorption. We get that. But the new data proves that beyond a certain point, we're just sacrificing calf comfort. We are sacrificing absorption efficiency.
We are literally causing colic.
Yeah.
Causing distress for a negligible, almost meaningless gain in antibody transfer.
Exactly.
So we're going to be myth-busting today, and that colostrum rule is target number one.
Yeah.
We'll show you why the idea that more colostrum is better is just flat out wrong past about 8% of a calf's body weight.
And we'll get into the most exciting part for me, for the financially minded farmer.
Okay.
How the data you are already collecting on your DHI reports, specifically the de novo fatty acids, is a completely free, immediate resource.
Something you can use right now.
Right now! For managing methane production and improving rumen health.
Free environmental selection plus immediate health insight. You really can't beat that.
You can't. So let's unpack this monumental stack of research. And let's start where every successful operation starts, with the calves.
Okay, let's do it. First meal of life. The core issue, and this is validated by the University of Guelph research, is that we've been overfeeding colostrum volume. Especially in that first critical meal, to the point where we are causing, verifiable physical pain and discomfort.
And for context, we have to acknowledge the history here. I mean, this goes against 2 decades of industry training.
It does.
The traditional rule became volume, 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 And for a good reason. Dr. Godin's foundational work in the early 2000s was crucial.
Absolutely essential.
It moved the entire industry away from tragically underfeeding colostrum, which was causing massive failure of passive transfer.
FPT was a huge problem.
A huge problem.
Yeah.
So that guidance, suggesting we feed 10% of body weight, was a necessary life-saving advance to make sure we hit those minimum IgG levels.
It was. It was essential for correcting FPT, but science is always refining the boundaries, right? And it seems like we've gone too far on the volume side.
Oh, we have.
The Guelph study, Frederick and his colleagues, they specifically refined that upper boundary. They looked at IgG absorption efficiency across 4 different volumes.
Okay, what were they?
6%, 8%, 10%, and 12% of birth weight.
Right.
The whole goal was to find that saturation point.
Where the benefit stops.
And the physiological cost begins. Exactly.
And what we found is that efficiency peaks, and then it just plateaus really fast.
Yeah.
You look at that 8% mark, and the absorption rate is excellent.
It's fantastic. Calves fed 8% of body weight reached a 24-hour serum IgG concentration of 37.4 grams per liter. That is far, far above the minimum threshold.
Okay, so that's great. That's success.
But here's the brutal ROI calculation. When they push the volume up by 50% to 12% of body weight, the serum concentration only hit 43.4 grams per liter.
So wait, you're making the calf drink 50% more?
50% more fluid volume.
For a tiny gain of just 6 grams per liter of IgG.
It's the law of diminishing returns hitting a brick wall.
And that minimal gain in IgG, it comes at a cost you can actually see, a cost in discomfort. And this is the data point that should make every farmer listening just stop what they're doing.
This is the one. We're talking about actual recorded physical distress, documented by researchers.
40 colic-like kicking episodes. 40.
It's a huge number. 40 recorded total episodes of abdominal kicking, arching, visible GI discomfort among the calves fed at 12%.
And the 10% group, which is still the standard for many farms.
They restored 21 kicks.
Yeah.
Still way too many. And the groups fed the new evidence-based maximum, the 6 and 8% volumes. 0 kicks. 0 observable distress after feeding.
So if you're tube feeding a calf and it stands up and starts kicking at its belly, or it's just really restless, this study is telling you it's not the colostrum quality.
It's not.
It's the sheer volume overwhelming its system. We are causing pain because we are fixated on a volume that the calf just doesn't need.
Let's talk about the mechanics for just a second, because it's important. We have to remember penocytosis. That's the process where the gut absorbs those huge IgG molecules.
Right.
It's finite. It happens fast in the first few hours, and then the gut capacity for absorption just gets saturated.
So when you push all that extra fluid in...
And extra antibodies just pass through. They're wasted. But the massive liquid volume stretches the abomosum. It stretches the gut, and that's what causes the pain.
So for a standard, let's say a 40-kilogram Holstein calf, a pretty typical size, 8% of body weight works out to 3.2 liters. Maximum for that first feeding.
It's the number.
And if you push that to 4 liters, which is 10%, you're pretty much guaranteeing distress for very, very little immunological return.
Now, I can hear a lot of farmers saying, wait a minute, I spend time mixing that high-quality colostrum, and I want to maximize my total IgG delivery. I need that extra volume.
That's a valid concern, and this is where we have to talk about the operational reality. We're not saying you should reduce the total amount of IgG you deliver.
No, absolutely not.
We're saying you have to respect the gut's immediate capacity. The fix is just split feeding.
Exactly. If you've got a total of, say, 5 liters, you want to get into that calf to ensure adequate IgG, you cap the first feeding at 3.2 liters.
At that 8% body weight mark.
Right. Then you wait 6 to 12 hours, and you give the remainder in the second feeding. You respect the biology, you let the calf system process that first load and reset.
And you still get the full benefit of all that IgG.
Without the 40 kicking episodes.
But wait, let's inject a dose of reality here. Splitting the feed means I'm doubling my labor time, and this is during the busiest window of the day. Is reducing a little colic really worth that increased labor and time?
That is the critical question, and I think the answer is yes. Because colic and distress, they have hidden costs.
Okay.
It's not just the immediate discomfort.
Yeah.
A colicky calf is a stressed calf.
Yeah.
A stressed calf has higher cortisol levels, and that can depress feed intake in the next 24 hours. It can slow down when they start on starter grain.
And ultimately delay your growth targets.
Right. We're talking about sacrificing days to weaning for a minimal IgG gain that you could have gotten in the second feeding anyway. Plus, you reduce stress, you reduce the chances you need a vet call for a distressed calf.
Which is easily $150 right there.
Minimum. So we're trading, 15 minutes of labor for better feed efficiency, faster growth, and 0 vet calls for simple gut distress.
When you put it that way, yeah, the return on that labor investment is pretty clear.
And before we move on, we have to just hammer this point home. Quality still trumps volume. Always.
Right. This whole conversation assumes high-quality colostrum.
Exactly. If you don't have a Brix refractometer, you are, frankly, gambling with your calf program. Those tools cost, maybe $150 to $300?
Cheap insurance.
They pay for themselves immediately. If one batch of colostrum that you thought was great only tested 18 Brix instead of 22, and you catch that mistake, you just prevented a $400 FPT case.
It's a no-brainer. And you mentioned the Wisconsin Extension data. That colostrum production tends to slump in the fall months.
Yeah, it's a real phenomenon.
So if you're banking colostrum, that refractometer is absolutely essential for deciding which dam's colostrum is good enough to freeze and use later.
The long-term strategy here is using that Brix meter to identify and bank those high-quality batches. So you're never scrambling, no matter what time of year it is.
So the bottom line on calves is, stop equating your effort with results. Pouring more in doesn't mean the calf absorbs more.
It just means the calf is uncomfortable. The new evidence-based cap is 8% of body weight for that first meal. Respect the biology.
Right. Speaking of foundations, if we shift from the calf's gut health to the cow's mobility, we find a structural problem that's just as serious.
The very foundation she walks on.
Exactly. And this lameness data, this is where that $400 problem really starts. The industry reality check here is that we are consistently missing the optimal intervention window.
We're missing it by weeks. We often wait until the damage is already structural. It's already permanent.
And look, it's not about farmer negligence. It's about human capability versus technology.
I agree.
The average busy farmer, you're trying to spot subtle changes during a crowded feed alley walk. You're only going to identify about a third of the lameness cases that a trained researcher would catch.
A researcher who's using slow, standardized scoring protocols. It's just a fundamental difficulty of catching subtle changes in a really dynamic environment.
And that failure to catch it early, that's what turns a minor stone bruise or a mild sole hemorrhage into a devastating chronic repeat offender case.
And the new research explains exactly why that happens. It drills right down to the cellular level.
Okay, let's unpack that, because understanding this is critical for understanding why lameness becomes chronic.
It is. So Wilson and colleagues at the University of Nottingham, they examined the collagen composition in the digital cushions of cull cows.
So that's the fatty cushion above the hoof horn, the main shock absorber?
That's the one. And the finding was this. Cows with chronic histories of hoof horn lesions had significantly lower type I collagen in their digital cushions.
Okay, so type I collagen is the good stuff, right? That's the resilient structure, the tensile strength, the elasticity.
It's like the dense foam in a good running shoe. That is the perfect analogy.
Okay.
Type I is the healthy, shock-absorbing sponge. When that cushion gets traumatized over and over again, the body's repair mechanism replaces that type I collagen with type 3 collagen.
And type 3 is basically just disorganized scar tissue.
Exactly. It's stiff, it lacks resilience, it cannot absorb shock correctly. It's like swapping the rubber sole of your work boots for a thin piece of rigid, brittle plastic.
Which means the cow is now walking on a compromised foundation. The weak cushion leads to more trauma on every step.
Which leads to more scar tissue.
And that cow is now structurally and permanently predisposed to getting lame again and again. You're fighting a cellular deficiency every time she steps on the concrete.
This explains those repeat offenders that drive producers crazy. You trim them, you block them, you footbath them, and 3 months later, they're back.
And you're spending $400 every single time fighting a structural deficiency that was set in stone or in scar tissue because you missed that first crucial preventative window.
And we have to talk about the financial compounding here. The Robsus study from 2023 JDS, it put the base direct cost of lameness at around €307. So,
$340 US.
Right. But that's the conservative number. That often doesn't even account for the secondary costs.
The lost milk, the cost of treating metritis that follows a painful calving.
Delayed breeding, increased risk of culling. When you factor all that in, that cost can easily surge towards $800 or even $1,000 for a serious case.
So if prevention costs $50 and a serious case costs $800, the data is clear. Prevention isn't just better, it's economically mandatory.
So how do we get there? We need detection that operates at the level of the cow's compensatory behavior, not her pain threshold.
And that brings us right back to the AI advantage and that critical 23-day gap.
Yeah.
The AI gait analysis systems, the ones that use cameras and vision processing, they are detecting mobility changes 3 weeks before activity collars or human observation flag the issue.
Wait, I have to push back here for the average farmer. My collars cost thousands of dollars, and they're supposed to track lameness. Why is my activity collar failing to catch this early window?
Because the collar measures the quantity of movement, step count, resting time. It's designed to catch the moment the cow is so sore she stops walking or feeding.
Which is when the lesion is already severe.
Exactly. But AI gait analysis, it measures the quality of movement, the kinetics, the weight distribution.
The cow changes how she walks long before she drops her total step count.
That's it.
So walk me through what that looks like. What's the AI catching that I'm not?
It's subtle, but visually, it's that uneven tracking of the hind feet. It's a slightly shorter stride length on one side when she makes a turn.
Okay.
It's the slight increase in the duration of the head bob when that sore foot hits the ground, even if her total head motion hasn't dropped yet.
Or, and this is a big one, it's the increased standing time before she lies down because she's testing that painful limb.
Right. She's compensating for discomfort. She hasn't dropped her dry matter intake yet. That compensation is happening 23 days before the system that only tracks steps even notices a drop in quantity.
So the AI system is identifying the cow acting like she's walking on glass, while the activity collar is waiting until she's just decided to stand still.
That is the fundamental difference. And that's the difference between the $50 intervention window and the $400 treatment window.
If you catch it in that compensatory phase, you can make a minor adjustment, maybe a quick look at the foot, a change in bedding.
And you prevent the type I collagen from turning into that type 3 scar tissue. You stop the chronic cycle before it even starts.
This raises an absolutely vital, skeptical challenge for farmers who are evaluating technology.
Yes.
If you are going to invest heavily in a monitoring system, you have to pressure the vendors. They need to prove they are measuring quality of gait, not just quantity of activity.
You need to ask them that critical question. What specific behavioral change does your system detect? And at what stage of disease progression does that change become measurable?
Right. And if they can't point to kinetics or weight distribution or the head bob, and they only talk about a general drop in activity,
You're probably buying a system that only detects the problem a week before your herdsman would caught it anyway. You're not buying the 23 days of prevention.
if it only catches the quantity drop, it is detecting pain, not preventing structural damage. The investment has to be justified by its ability to break that type 3 collagen cycle.
Okay, let's shift gears completely. From the structure of the foot to the structure of the breeding program. Let's talk beef on dairy.
Yeah, the conversation is almost always fixated on the dollar premium you get for that calf.
Right.
But the new data confirms that chasing the biggest premium can absolutely wipe out your profitability, and then some on the cow side.
This is a textbook example of prioritizing a short-term gain over the long-term health of your herd. We have seen operations get financially burned by this.
Absolutely. The study in the December JDS was massive on this, a genetic analysis of 231,000 calving ease records.
Across 1.2 million lactations.
Right. They looked at Holsteins and Jerseys bred to the big three, Angus, Charolais, and Simmental. They had the data to see the true trade-off.
And the core finding, this should be non-negotiable for every single producer out there. Profitability hinges entirely on the calving ease EPDs.
The expected progeny differences.
Exactly. It is not the beef breed itself that determines success or failure. It is the specific CE score of the sire you choose. You can't just generalize.
And the evidence for success is there, which is encouraging. Research from Penn State and the University of Kentucky showed that when you select beef sires with favorable CE indices,
And this is a key distinction.
specifically for mature dairy cows, not first calf heifers.
Right.
When you do that, dystocia rates show no significant increase compared to just using dairy semen.
So the U.S. sire selection parameters, when you apply them with diligence, they are not inherently bad for the cow.
Which proves the program can work. But it works conditionally. It's a management program first and a genetics program second.
And the warning sign is that anecdote that became a damaging trend for the early adopters. I heard one producer put it perfectly. He said, they got greedy on the calf side and forgot about the cow side.
This is exactly what happened. They chased the high-dollar calves using powerful, high-growth sires that had just terrible calving ease EPDs.
They were focused on that $300 calf check premium, and they watched their heifer dystocia rates climb to 25, even 30%.
You cannot afford that.
Yeah.
Let's just break down the economics of one difficult calving. You get a $200 premium for that beef calf.
That profit is gone with the first complication.
Instantly. What are the costs? You've got the direct vet assistance. That's easily $100 to $250 for a difficult pull, especially if it's after hours.
Then you have the post-calving trauma. A difficult calving dramatically increases the risk of a retained placenta.
Which requires more treatment, adds another $75 to $150. And if that leads to metritis,
You're looking at more treatments, more labor, and potentially a lifetime hit on fertility.
and the biggest cost is the opportunity cost, the delayed breeding cycle.
Right.
A cow that suffers dystocia takes significantly longer to resolve her uterus and cycle back. If that extends her voluntary waiting period by just 10 or 15 days,
We're sacrificing hundreds of pounds of milk in her next lactation.
that $200 calf premium suddenly looks tiny compared to a $600 to $1,000 cost of a complicated recovery.
So the operational framework for successful beef on dairy based on this research is really simple. 1, you must select sires with documented favorable CE-EPDs. No exceptions.
You can't just pick a Charolais because the calves look good.
2, you limit beef breeding primarily to mature, proven cows, and you strictly avoid your high-risk heifers. And 3, you actively, religiously monitor your dystocia rates.
If your percentage of assisted calvings goes up even 2%, you immediately tighten your CE selection threshold.
It has to be a non-negotiable threshold. I mean, if you look at specific examples, Angus and Hereford, they generally have lines that work reliably because their CE scores are often better managed.
But breeds like Charolais or Belgian Blue, they offer that tempting premium.
But they require extreme diligence on CE selection. Without that, you're just financially exposing your herd to a totally unnecessary risk.
Don't let the potential premium distract you from the cost of the event. The cow is the primary asset. Her recovery and her next lactation must always come first.
Okay, let's look forward now. The regulatory and environmental pressures on dairy. They're not going away, especially on methane.
Not a chance.
But the good news from the genetic side is that reducing methane might be way more tractable than we assumed. And we can do it without trade-offs or cost.
This is the ultimate free win segment. It really changes the environmental conversation for dairy producers.
The major finding from Cemex, Lectinet, and Guelph, and this is from analyzing over 700,000 milk MIR records, is massive. Methane efficiency traits show heritability of about 23%.
23% heritability. To put that in perspective for you, that is comparable to key production traits like milk yield and fat percentage.
And it is dramatically higher than health and fertility traits, which usually land somewhere between, 3 and 8%.
So this means genetic selection for methane reduction is highly effective. It's fast. We can move the needle on this quickly.
It's an incredibly powerful lever. But here's the other piece of just seismic good news. And this removes the biggest barrier to environmental selection in a production system.
Which is?
The genetic correlation between methane efficiency and milk yield is, statistically speaking, 0.
0. No trade-off required. You can select for a more efficient, high-producing cow and reduce her emissions at the same time.
The environmental choice is no longer an economic penalty.
So what does that mean for a long-term strategy? Cemex is projecting that a 20 to 30% reduction in herd methane output by 2050 is absolutely achievable.
Through genetics alone, depending on how intensely the industry selects for it.
And the timeline is fast enough to make a real difference in your lifetime. Generation 1, that's about 2 years, gets you a 3 to 4% herd reduction.
By generation 3, 6 to 8 years, you're looking at a 10 to 12% cumulative reduction. That is significant, verifiable environmental progress.
And it's achieved just by refining your sire selection criteria.
So here's the practical application. You don't need to overhaul your program. You keep selecting for what's profitable: fat, protein, net merit, health.
Right.
You then use methane efficiency as a tiebreaker. Between two otherwise equivalent bulls, it costs you nothing to add that criterion.
And you are quietly stripping carbon footprint with every single generation. It's the ultimate why not trait.
Exactly. If Bull A and Bull B offer identical projected profitability and health, but Bull A is a 5% more efficient methane reducer, the choice is obvious.
And here's the best part of all. You are already paying for the data that feeds these efficiency scores.
The methane efficiency scores are derived from the same DHI test you run every month.
Right. Most operations are already submitting samples for DHI testing, which generates that mid-infrared spectral data to measure fat and protein. And the mechanism here is actually really elegant. It ties directly back to rumen function.
Okay, so explain the biology simply. Focus on the hydrogen management in the rumen.
The rumen is a constant hydrogen factory. High methane cows, they tend to have fermentation pathways that churn out a lot of acetate. That acetate production releases hydrogen as a byproduct. That hydrogen is then quickly captured by methanogens and converted into methane, which the cow belches out.
And that acetate-rich environment leaves a distinct signature in the milk.
A signature of milk, rich in de novo fatty acids.
Conversely, the low methane cows, they're channeling that hydrogen into a more efficient pathway, producing more propionate.
Which is a source of glucose for the cow,
right?
Productive energy.
Yeah.
So when the cow produces more propionate and less acetate, the fatty acid profile of the milk changes.
So propionate is the productive pathway. Acetate leads to waste in the form of methane.
Precisely. So if I see high de novo fatty acid readings on my DHI report, that's not just a fat number. It's a free, actionable warning sign that this cow is running a high acetate, potentially high methane, and slightly less energy efficient rumen.
But hold on, I'm looking at my DHI sheet right now. It says fat, protein, MUN, SCC. It doesn't say methane profile or de novo fatty acids. How do I actually get this data that I'm supposedly already paying for?
That is the practical hurdle. The data is being generated by the spectrometer, but often the DHI processing center doesn't automatically print the full fatty acid profile on the standard sheet.
So I have to ask for it.
You have to call your DHI processor or your extension specialist and specifically request the detailed fatty acid breakdown. It might be under a section called fatty acid breakdown or MER profiles. Once you get that sheet, you're looking for the percentage of de novo fatty acids.
So if I start tracking that de novo percentage, I get 2 wins for the price of 1.
You do.
First, I get a free early warning system for acidosis, which we absolutely need to monitor in transition cows.
Yes, low de novo can be a primary signal of a compromised rumen.
And second, I get a baseline for selecting for lower methane genetics over time.
You nailed it. You get rumen health and methane efficiency information from one piece of paper you already paid for. It is sitting there waiting for you to use it as a powerful diagnostic tool and a free environmental selection criterion. That's efficiency you just can't ignore.
All right, let's step back into skeptic mode for a minute. We've talked about free genetic solutions. Now let's talk about the expensive additive solutions hitting the market.
The methane reduction product market is flooding with sales pitches.
And as an operator, you need extreme caution and a set of really rigorous questions before you spend a single dime.
Absolutely. You have to assume the rumen adapts. It has been optimizing itself for millions of years. If someone claims they've fundamentally changed that fermentation vat with a plant extract,
they need robust, sustained, and verified proof.
So we developed 4 buyer beware questions, and I want every farmer listening to print these out and bring them to your next sales meeting.
These questions force the vendor to prove biological efficacy, not just marketing claims.
Okay, question 1, the basic sanity check. Show me the DMI data alongside the methane data.
Right. If the results show a drop in methane, but also a proportional drop in dry matter intake, you might just be buying an expensive appetite suppressant.
If the cow eats 5% less feed, methane drops 5%. That's not a change in efficiency. That's just a reduced feed bill that leads to less milk.
It's a false economy. You are trading necessary feed intake for a climate claim. Question 2 separates true mitigation from just intake depression. Is this reduction measured in grams per day or grams per kilogram DMI?
This is crucial. Total daily methane can drop simply because the cow ate less. That's meaningless.
It is.
Methane yield grams per kilogram of DMI. That is what proves the additive actually altered the fermentation pathways, diverting hydrogen to propionate.
So if they only show you a reduction in grams per day, you tell them you need to see the yield data. A 500 gram per day reduction sounds great, but if DMI dropped 4 kilos, the yield is the same. You need that specificity.
Question 3 focuses on endurance. How long did the trials run?
If the trials ran under 8 weeks, I am raising a serious skeptical eyebrow. The rumen microbiome adapts quickly.
We see this all the time with plant extracts or oils. You get a beautiful 15 or 20% reduction in methane initially.
And then the methanogens figure out a workaround, and the reduction is gone by week 10. You need trials that run for a minimum of 12 weeks, ideally across multiple lactations, to prove sustained efficacy.
And the final, biological gut check, pun intended. Where did the hydrogen go?
Yes. If you are blocking the methanogens from making methane, you are blocking the cow's primary hydrogen disposal route. The vendor must explain the new hydrogen sink.
Ideally, that hydrogen is being channeled into propionate, a useful productive energy source for the cow.
And if they can't explain that pathway and quantify the corresponding increase in propionate, the rumen might just be building up hydrogen pressure, which stresses the cow and can lead to her going off feed.
It forces vendors to show they understand the complex biology, not just the simple marketing tagline.
Okay, let's pivot to another health topic where the science is still emerging, and we need to counsel significant caution. The bovine leukemia virus BLV connection to calf health.
Right. There's emerging research suggesting an association between the BLV status in dams and calf health outcomes, specifically respiratory disease.
But this is a classic case where we have to emphasize uncertainty. We need to avoid massive operational changes based on preliminary findings.
So why the uncertainty? Because the mechanisms are completely unclear and the potential for confounding factors is enormous.
Right. Is it that BLV-infected dams produce colostrum with compromised immunity? Is it a direct immune effect on the calf? Or is this just a marker for something else?
That third point, the confounding management, is huge. USDA NHMS data shows 94% of U.S. dairy herds have at least one BLV-positive cow. The average prevalence is 46%.
So high prevalence herds might systematically have lower biosecurity practices overall, higher calf housing density, poorer ventilation.
Factors that independently drive respiratory disease. We don't know if the BLV status is the root cause or just a flag for a riskier management environment.
So let's focus on what we do know with confidence. Economic analyses already show that reducing BLV is financially sound, regardless of any calf link.
Right. Every 10% increase in herd prevalence is associated with losses in the 430 to 540 pound rolling herd average range.
Due to reduced longevity, increased culling, subtle production drops.
The known reasons. Therefore, our bovine position remains consistent. Don't overhaul your calf respiratory program solely based on this emerging link yet.
Continue to pursue BLV reduction for the already validated financial reasons: production, cow longevity, overall immune health.
Any calf health benefit you see down the line is a bonus, not the primary driver for a costly intervention today. Manage what you know and monitor the data on what you don't.
Solid advice. Manage the cost drivers first.
All right, so a farmer just finished milking. They've internalized this mountain of data, and they're driving to the feed store right now. What are the three most actionable things they need to remember from this deep dive? The 3 steps that save them money immediately.
First thing, right-size your colostrum. Stop causing colic for no benefit.
Okay, takeaway 1.
Immediate action this week. If you don't own a Brix refractometer, buy one. Make it standard protocol. Non-negotiable. Second, set a hard cap on that first feeding at 8% of the calf's body weight.
So 3.2 liters maximum for a standard 40-kilo calf.
Exactly. We're cutting out the colic, not the IgG delivery.
And the medium-term strategy, 3 to 6 months out.
Implement a split feeding protocol for any total volume needs that exceed that 8% maximum. Give the calf 8% immediately, then the remainder 6 to 12 hours later. And make sure your calf crew is tracking comfort scores to ensure that visible distress is gone.
Long-term, 1 to 2 years.
Start refining your dam selection for your colostrum bank based on consistently excellent Brix readings. You need to be prioritizing cows with superior IgG quality and aggressively banking that colostrum during peak seasons to cover those inevitable fall slumps.
Takeaway number 2, enforce genetic non-negotiables. Especially when you're chasing that beef on dairy premium, the cow always comes first.
Immediate action this week. Pull your current inventory of beef on dairy semen. Audit the calving ease EPDs. Right now, if any sires fall below a strict minimum CE threshold that you've set, pull them from the stack. I don't care what the calf premium is, you can't afford the dystocia costs.
Medium term, 3 to 6 months.
Start using those methane efficiency scores as a tiebreaker when selecting your new sires. Capitalize on that 23% heritability with zero production trade-off. And enforce the rule, limit beef breeding primarily to your mature cows.
And long term, 1 to 2 years out.
Systematically track your herd's dystocia rate for beef on dairy calves specifically. If that rate climbs even slightly above your baseline, you immediately adjust your CE selection threshold until that rate returns to normal. Profitability is defined by the health of the dam, not the size of the calf check.
And takeaway number 3, stop paying for data you don't use.
Yes. Leverage your existing DHI investment. Immediate action this week. Locate your last few DHI reports. Call your DHI processor and specifically request the detailed fatty acid profile, focusing on the de novo fatty acid percentages.
Start using it as a baseline indicator for early rumen health monitoring. Watch for signs of acidosis in your transition cows. It's a free window into your herd's health.
Medium term, 3 to 6 months. If you are evaluating new lameness monitoring tech, use our research evaluation checklist. Ask vendors specifically about that 23-day detection window. Make sure the system measures the quality of gait, not just the quantity of steps.
You've got to guarantee you're preventing that type 3 collagen damage.
And long term, 1 to 2 years. Integrate that de novo fatty acid profile into your nutritional and genetic strategy. Use that data to subtly select for lower methane, more efficient rumens over time. It's an environmental and efficiency benefit delivered via your existing DHI infrastructure without spending a single dollar on questionable feed additives.
This has been another Bullvine podcast from the Bullvine Podcast. For more straight-talking industry analysis, including those crucial skeptical questions for feed vendors, head to www.thebullvine.com.
Subscribe wherever you get podcasts. We're out with new episodes every day, and upcoming topics will be analyzing the true cost of parlor automation labor dynamics and the shifting consumer demand for A2 milk proteins. We'll see you next time.